You're listening to the Inbound Logistics Podcast with today's guest, Emilie Gerbers, Vice President of Business Development for MD Logistics. MD Logistics is an independent subsidiary of global freight forwarder, the Nippon Express Group. An efficient warehouse can lead to big cost savings, increased customer satisfaction, and an improved bottom line. One way to achieve that efficiency is through comprehensive technology upgrades designed for your business. But what exactly are the correct upgrades that you need to make to support your company's growth? Emilie Gerbers, Vice President of Business Development for MD Logistics, shares some insights on what technology is at hand for your supply chain success. Joining us today on the Inbound Logistics Podcast, I have Emilie Gerbers, Vice President of Business Development for MD Logistics. Emilie, thank you so much for hopping on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. Emilie, do us a favor if you could and introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about what you're doing there at MD Logistics.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm Emilie Gerbers. I am Vice President of Business Development, as you so kindly shared. And I've actually been working with MD Logistics, which is a niche 3PL in the life sciences, pharmaceutical, and medical device space for going on 15 years. My background with the company started in marketing and brand awareness, and over the years has evolved into a full-time business development and sales position where I lead our team as we qualify new business opportunities in the life sciences pharmaceutical space. This also includes over-the-counter products and consumer healthcare products that require storage in a CGMP temperature-controlled environment. So we have 6 facilities today that are all multi-client site facilities, which are really great because it enables us to offer our client a truly transactional model whereby they pay for the space, technology, quality, and labor associated with operating their business within our 4 walls. And over the years, we've had the opportunity to make significant investments in technology, which I think has really enabled us to secure and retain a lot of our longtime clients, but also attract new clients as well.
Great segue right there, because we're talking about technology upgrades today, and particularly in creating a more efficient warehouse. So if you could you talk to me a little bit about that shared warehouse environment? When you're dealing with that environment where you have multiple clients, what kind of conversations do you need to have with those clients to make sure that you're making the correct technological upgrades to support their business growth? What kind of questions are you asking them?
Yeah, so it's a great question, quite honestly, because you do have to be cognizant of every client in the environment, right? It's not a dedicated solution. And so it's a best practice of ours to have regular business review set up with our clients. With some clients, based on the volume and the size, that's a monthly business review. With others, it's quarterly or semi-annually. And some of our smaller clients, we're able to have a really nice, robust annual touch base. But what's important about those meetings is asking our clients what's coming, right? What's coming next? Is it a new product? Is it a new pack out? Is it a different configuration? Is the order profile changing, which essentially means their client base is potentially changing or they're tapping into a new market, right? And so it's being cognizant of what's next for the client and always being willing to ask that question. I know it sounds very basic, but sometimes that gets lost in the day-to-day. We're so caught up in what do you need today? How are we performing? Or even looking backwards sometimes at historical performance. But it's always important that we're asking for that forward look, right? Wanting to understand how is their business evolving to ensure that our environment is evolving in line with them. One of the major selling points for us as a third-party logistics provider in this supply chain space is the fact that we like to be customizable and flexible for our client, which essentially means tell us what you need and we will provide that for you. We will build that solution with you. And so, there's a saying that we've had, around MD Logistics that's always been tell us how to do it and we'll do it. We'll learn how to do it. We'll bring that solution forward. And so we always want to be having those questions and those conversations in front of our clients and with our clients. I think, it sounds very basic, but then internalizing that with our team, talking about what's next for each client, making sure that any warehouse changes or modifications that we might be making to layout or technology doesn't put another client's business at risk. That's always very top of mind to us as well. A great example of this was for one of our clients that had a really high unit pick volume where we were doing a lot of picking to carts. Our associates would take a two-tier cart, they would wheel it to the pick location, they would use an RF gun, they would scan the location, scan the product, scan it into an overpack, but they would walk these carts around our warehouse. And their volume got to be so big, and they had a very a large fourth quarter peak season in conjunction with some other clients, but this was really driven with one client specifically, that we realized we just weren't being as efficient as we could be. And so we started looking at some technology in the collaborative robotics space to say, how can we make our people more efficient? We're not looking to bring technology in to replace our people. We just want to supplement our people and supplement the operation. And we were able to bring in a technology, which was a collaborative robotic picking cart, whereby the cart moved autonomously to the pick location. The associates always stayed in the pick location, scanned into a cart, picked to that cart. That cart then went to final audit and pick and pack, and the associate waited for the next cart to come. And that was a real win for us from an efficiency perspective. But because we're in this shared environment, all of our clients in that warehouse who had a similar pick profile were able to take advantage of that technology when really it was one main client that drove us there, but all the clients really got to reap that benefit.
That's great. Now, speaking of that, with such a dynamic landscape, so many changes in technology, and trying to project into the future, how can you know what upgrades to prioritize?
Yeah, that's can be the tricky part of investment, right? And also the tricky part of technology because it is ever changing. You know, transparently, we are in this life sciences and pharmaceutical industry where we have to be cognizant of change control requirements of our clients. So anytime we're making an investment in technology and a change in our warehouse environments, it has to go through a process with our client. So it's important that we vet the technology, that we're having an open dialogue with our client, and then we're prioritizing based either on client product launches or changes that are happening with our client, or also compliance and regulatory changes. You know, the DSCSA regulation, which is the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, which essentially means every unit down to the individual unit that a patient will consume needs to be serialized. And that has been a big change in our industry. And we had to ensure for our clients that we not only had a warehouse management system and the ability to store all that extra data, all that serialized data, but that we also could scale to our clients' order profiles and order volumes as they were scaling with new product launch. So it was, you know, at that time, it was making sure we had a warehouse management solution and a serialization solution at the operational level, but then also making sure we had infrastructure in place to scale with a new product launch that this client was approaching as well. So again, if I go back to that very basic comment and that communication with the client to say what's coming next and how do we help you get there, you know, this was one of those things where, you know, the serialization regulation started hitting back in, you know, 2013, 2015 is when it first started and started, you know, gaining legs. And then it kept getting pushed off. It kept getting pushed off. It kept getting pushed off. And our main client in 2019 said, we're not pushing it anymore. We're just going to go live with it. And here we are in 2025 and the whole serialization rollout hasn't fully happened. So here we are 10 years later, but, you know, 7 years beyond when we first launched with our client. And honestly, having this serialized solution from a technology perspective enabled us to bring on that first client, learn some lessons, right? And then bring on the rest of our clients, you know, in a phased approach over time. And then also upgrading, you know, our warehouse environments, the physical warehouse environment with conveyor upgrades and smart conveyor and things of that nature that, you know, enabled us to not only handle the serialized product, but then also handle the, you know, immense volume increases that we were seeing with some of these clients as well. So A lot of that goes hand in hand with just understanding the timing of when our clients are rolling these things out. Some things are going to be industry driven, some things are going to be client driven, and it just is kind of staying, on pace with those, understanding what our internal processes are, understanding the approvals that we need from clients. So it really is having that good communication cadence, not only internally from an operational and a finance perspective, but also externally with our client and their quality groups and their operation teams to ensure that we're in lockstep. We never want to find ourselves where we're having to react to a business need that we could have very easily proactively planned for.
Okay, great. Now, I want to touch on something that you mentioned earlier about not replacing people, but supplementing people. So how has implementing new technology in the facilities, how does that impact the workforce?
Well, I think in a number of ways. A lot of the technology that we have put in place, if I go back to the collaborative robotics that I spoke about, that reduced our training time from 2 weeks to 2 days, really, essentially, as it relates to getting our associates up to speed on how to work within the WMS interface, how to work with the RF guns, and things of that nature. It became a very streamlined process. So I like to say, it helps us train and it helps us retain. Employees are really excited to use new technology. You'll always have those who are a bit resistant to change. I think by human nature, we're resistant to change, right? But what we found, especially in our environment, is as soon as you can make team members part of the process, as soon as you can educate them on how this makes life easier, why it's going to make things more efficient, how their shift is going to be impacted because they don't have to walk back and forth from pick locations to pack locations. They can just stay in the zone and just badge into a machine and work. Or with this new smart conveyor, now the conveyor is doing more work, whereas it's directing parcels down to pack lines, and the associates are no longer having to palletize the product and then move it to a pack location or a staging location. So I think it's important to bring the employees along with you on that journey and help educate them. But from a training perspective, we certainly have seen wins from a timing. Folks get trained and are more confident working much sooner than they were with some of our legacy technology. And I think from a retention perspective, it makes it a more interesting and more fun place to work when you're working with newer technology. One example as it relates to an investment that we made in technology that we thought was going to have, a real win right away, actually had some late adopters, and that was bringing finger scanners into our operation. So we thought, okay, finger scanners are great. It frees up their hands. They don't have to pick up and put down an RF gun. They can use these finger scanners, and we thought this was going to be, hands down a win-win with our team members,
So to speak.
Right, exactly. And what we found is they were picking up the finger scanner, scanning and putting it down. They were treating it like an RF gun, and which it was really, kind of comical to us. We're like, no, the whole point is so you don't have to pick up and put down. It's at your fingertips. And so that was an area where we had to go back through and do some retraining to say, like, we're moving away from that. We're freeing you up to be more efficient, right? This is an efficiency play. You don't have to use this bulky, RF gun. It's at your fingertips, literally. And so that was kind of surprising to us that wasn't adopted as quickly or as efficiently as we thought it would be. But certainly, after going through another training exercise, there were adopters across the board. And now, when associates come into the workforce and all they have is finger scanners, of course, there's no challenge there because that's the technology that they're using today.
Yeah. Now, the big question then for all of these companies is with all of these efficiencies in place and all the training and retaining, what is the impact on their bottom line?
Yeah, so I think this can be reflected in a number of ways. Certainly, we're investing in technology to be more efficient for our client, to handle more business volume, right? But it's an investment. We are investing. We are putting money into the business. So, you don't always see the wins right away just from a monetary bottom line perspective. But what I will say is we have found that I would say our top 10 clients are long-term clients, whereby they've renewed. We've had multiple contract renewals with them, right? So I think when you're in a situation like ours, we're, business process outsource. We are a third party in our client supply chain. But when we treat these contracts as true partnerships and when we develop relationships with our clients to say, we are investing in your business, we are growing and scaling alongside of you, for me, that's the impact to the bottom line is this, continued contract renewal, these long-term clients that stay with you, who see the investment that we're making in them. Also from an employee retention perspective, we're not having to do a lot of, retraining or onboarding because we're retaining client or we're retaining employees longer because they enjoy working with this technology. Being more efficient also typically leads to higher quality of work and higher performance because a lot of the technology that we're putting in place also comes with the quality win, right? So we have a secondary packaging line in one of our facilities. We're an FDA relabeler repackager, and we're able to do some of that secondary packaging work in-house as opposed to, sending it out to a CMO or a packaging contractor. So, again, it's a win for our clients. It's less touches on their product, so risk mitigation, less transportation dollars, the product stays in one place. And we recently upgraded that line to include a scale, whereby now the line is configured for the different kits or SKUs that are going to go through the line. And now we have a scale associated with that. So if the box missed a pamphlet or instruction for use, an IFU, or maybe an associate missed putting a vial in with a medical device or something to that effect, now there's a scale there. So the scale's going to error that out and say, nope, this isn't right based on how the line is calibrated for that product, right? That's a quality win for us, right? We made an investment in this scale based on how the volumes were ramping up. It's still a manual process, right? We still have people working on the line, but we've included this scale, which has really made us have a higher quality of output. So it's quality, it's efficiency, it's client retention, right? It's really truly enhancing those partnerships, and in the end, of course, that shows up in the bottom line. But it's not an immediate thing, right? We're not investing today to see the return tomorrow. We're investing today to see the return over time, and that looks like those renewed contracts, those employees that we're able to retain, that higher quality of work that we're putting out for our client.
All right, you mentioned a lot of wins there. Increased efficiency, cost savings, cooler place to work, so you're retaining employees. Are there other wins that can be realized with technology upgrades?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the technology upgrades, certainly, there's an opportunity to be forward looking and to, bring legacy systems to current systems, right? We have a big project on our plate right now where we're going through a warehouse management or a WMS upgrade. We're using what some would say is a legacy system, right? It's an older technology, and we're very excited to be moving to a cloud native solution, which certainly adds, security features, some better integration opportunities. Is just a better product all around, but will still give us, the customization and the quality that we need around our client base and the work that we do. So we're very excited about this upgrade. We're working with a third party to, kind of scope it out and put our plan in place to upgrade all of our facilities across our network in the U.S. We have a West Coast facility in Nevada. We have 4 facilities in Plainfield, Indiana, which is where our headquarters are. And we also have a facility in Garner, North Carolina, just outside of the Raleigh-Durham area. So, upgrading all of these facilities in one big bang certainly is not the approach, right? It's a phased approach. It's a scaled approach. But this is going to give us more modern API frameworks for integration, It's going to give us better security and compliance. Like I said, a lot of our clients are starting to look for some additional ISO certifications that we haven't historically had from an IT and security perspective, but upgrading our WMS will enable us to be more compliant and even seek some of those certifications, which obviously makes us more competitive in the space as well, and provides our client with a better solution and service. So we're really, really excited about that. I think the other thing that we see with this, again, if I go back to, the employees, it's a more modern web interface. If I look at, the technology that we have today, it feels archaic, if you will, just in the way that it looks. And I know that sounds very silly, but right, this will be mobile friendly. We'll be able to use it better on like handhelds or tablets within the operation. And that goes a long way, again, with our employees and how they're engaging out on the floor with operations. When they're doing inventory or things of that nature, this should be a much more user-friendly environment for them as well. And that goes a long way. We want our people to be happy. We want their work to be something that is easy for them to navigate when it comes to the technology we're putting in place. We don't want the technology to be cumbersome. And so that's always top of mind for us as well.
That's great. So if our audience wants to go and find out more information about MD Logistics and about some of those solutions and services, as well as all of the information that you presented today, where can I send them?
Yeah, so the audience can go to www.mdlogistics.com. That is our homepage. And then from there, you can navigate to read some of our expert content as it relates to case studies or white papers, where some of the examples that I gave today are explained in much more detail. And they can also visit our services offering page, where they can understand a little bit more about what makes us a niche 3PL and how we work specifically in this space.
Excellent. That link will be in the show notes. Emilie Gerbers, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck to you, and best of luck to MD Logistics.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Inbound Logistics Magazine is the information leader in supply chain and logistics management. Start your free print and digital subscription today by visiting bit.ly/getil. That's bit.ly/get_IL, and stay ahead of the 3PL game.
The Inbound Logistics Podcast is a production of Inbound Logistics Magazine. For the most in-depth information around logistics, transportation, and supply chain practices, get your free print and digital subscription at inboundlogistics.com/subscribe. Connect with us via LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube for the most current developments in the industry. If you'd like to leave us some feedback or have a topic you'd like to see covered in a future episode, call our dialogue line at 888-878-3247 or leave us an email at podcast@inboundlogistics.com. I'm your host, Jeff Vita. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time here on the Inbound Logistics Podcast.